In this video, I'm going to show you a bunch of stretches and exercises and myofascial release techniques that will help with muscular imbalance. I would say the majority of my clients that I see, they do sitting for their job, and that's driving, that's sitting at your desk, and they end up with this posture that will create all kinds of problems. Just in general, can develop back issues, shoulder issues, neck issues in life, but can certainly lead to potential injury when doing exercises. So we want to address these muscular imbalances to keep you healthy and happy and safe in whatever you're doing. So foam roller would be beneficial, yoga tune-up balls or something like that would be beneficial, and very simple little mini bands. So we are going to start with a long foam roller. If you don't have one of these, I will show you an option of something that you can do instead. But if you have a long foam roller, go ahead and lay lengthwise on your foam roller. And we'll first just kind of settle in here and let the body open up. And so I've got my arms open, so I get a gentle stretch across my chest. So take a few deep breaths here. Now, if you do not have a foam roller, just lay down on your back and allow yourself to kind of just arrive in this space on the floor. Okay, so on foam roller, off foam roller, we're just going to be laying with arms open and knees bent. And then we're going to start involving the arms in this by doing a snow angel type maneuver. So again, whether you're on the roller or not, you're going to start to reach your arms back over your head, whatever range works for you, and then bring them back down. Now, the next time you reach those arms overhead, engage the core, a little bit of a pelvic tilt. And again, on the roller or not, as you reach up, exhale, and then inhale back to your start position, and you can let the arch come back behind the back and soften into the belly. And then exhale, press the low back down, engage the core as you reach arms back, and then slowly bring those arms back to their start position. And the arms can be somewhat straight for a few and then somewhat bent for a few. So again, I'm going to exhale, flatten the back. Arms are pretty straight right now, like a true snow angel. And then I'll do some with bent elbows. That's going to feel different. Almost more like a shoulder press. And then bring it back. Back can leave the ground or the roller a bit. And exhale. And again, if you don't have a foam roller, this works fine. The foam roller just does a little bit of opening up across the chest a little bit more because, of course, I've got gravity working against my body here. So I'm getting a little bit more of a chest opening, and I'm getting a little bit of myofascial release work through my whole spine. All right, so go ahead and start to make your way off of your roller, or again, if you're on the floor, you'll just come up. So the next one we're going to do is going to be working into the hip area. So almost everybody I've run across that sits a lot, their glutes are kind of turned off. So we need to wake them up, and we can do that by massaging them. So we kind of get them unstuck. And then of course, then we will actually activate them. So sort of sitting side saddle if you're using a foam roller, and I'll show you how you can use a ball as well. And just taking a little rock back and forth, and we're trying to roll the whole glute area. So we go up and down on here. Now, if I felt like I needed a little more, I could cross my ankle over my thigh. So this is really addressing the whole glute as I roll. Go ahead and continue if you're using a roller. Now, if I wanted to get a little bit more specific, I could use one of these guys, a ball. And again, it could be a tennis ball even, or any sort of rubberized ball. I'm not a fan of the lacrosse balls. They're just a little too hard in my opinion. And you can do this sitting, but if that's too much, you could certainly lay down and do some rolling back and forth. Same option, you could cross ankle over thigh. So you could play with one, play with the other, see if the roller or the ball is more effective for you, or maybe one day you use one and another day you use another. These little guys are easy to just carry with you anywhere because they don't take up a lot of space. Obviously, this takes up more space. Now, while you roll, really try to focus on what you're doing here. So if you take some deep breaths, you're more likely to down regulate, so deep breathing. And if you down regulate, you're much more likely to get those tissues to soften and relax for you. So we'll be here for another 4 or 5 breaths, rolling up and down, kind of leaning all around. So I'm trying to get all of the tissue of my whole entire glute. So when these tissues are shut down, locked down, or asleep, I sometimes like to say, they're not doing their job for you. If they're not doing their job for you, then guess what? Everything else around has to take over. So that could be your low back. That's usually where it shows up. But it might also mean that now your knees don't feel good because everything below the glute hip area is overworking. The joints have to overwork. If you're not doing a bunch of the work with the muscles, then joints have to work. But the big place I definitely find things show up is in the low back if your glutes are not firing, working properly for you. All right, so we're gonna go to side number 2. And again, option to use the roller or the ball. I'll show you both again. Now, again, if I am now rolling my left glute, if I'm crossing my ankle, it's my left ankle over my thigh. So sometimes you'll see people do this, and it's fine if you do that. It's not going to hurt anything, but you actually get more out of it if you cross whatever glute I'm rolling on, that ankle over the opposite thigh. That may or may not even be accessible to you. So you may need to leave the foot on the ground, and that's fine. When you do cross ankle over thigh, you will expose the piriformis. If any of you have piriformis syndrome or sciatica, this can be effective as long as it's not too much. If you're really, really flared up in this area, and how you'll know it's too much is it's so intense you can't take a deep breath. In which case, maybe you just roll around that area, not expose it so much by crossing the ankle. You'll hear me say it over and over again. If you can't take a deep breath, it's really too much. If it's so intense, you're actually freaking out, it's too much. I'm going to show you the ball again. So it might be laying down, in which case I'm really kind of limited to the side to side movement. I can just keep moving that ball around. And once again, benefit to the ball is that I can get into more specific areas. I also don't bump up against bone and bruise myself so much because this ball has some give. I could cross ankle over thigh still on this one if that seems appropriate. And I could do this sitting as well. Up and down, side to side, maybe ankle over thigh. And keep taking deep breaths. Remember, that's really a key to getting things to soften and relax for you. You'll get some benefit if you don't, but you'll get more benefit if you focus on taking deep breaths. All right, so we are going to transition to inner thigh. So when I do my testing with folks when they first come to me, oftentimes I will do this squat test and I see the knees falling in as they do their squat. That tells me a few things. As I mentioned, the glutes are turned off. They're not doing their job. Oftentimes it means the inner thighs are really tight also. So we've got some muscles that are weak because they are locked down, and other areas that are potentially weak because they just are not getting used so they're not supporting. So I've got the roller laying alongside my body. I do want to bring my knee up in line with my hip as best I can. For some people, that's not possible, but as close as you can get to that, please do. So what I'm saying is a lot of times I'll say throw your leg over the roller and the leg is way down here. You really want it up in line with the hip so that you are perpendicular here. And then I'm rolling up and down. Okay, so I might stay on my elbows and forearm area. If I'm doing that, remember, keep the belly tight because I don't want to feel this in my low back. If I get super sway back, I'm going to start having pain in my back. If I already started off with pain, I definitely want to be careful about that. If I can't hold myself up, I might just throw the leg on there and I could do some small movements like this. Now you control how much of your weight is on there. Of course, if I'm way up here and I'm on top of it, I am putting a lot of my weight on there. If I'm leaning a little bit away from it, it's less of my weight, and that might be more appropriate, especially if this is super tight. So I'm rolling up and down. Remember, knee as best you can in line with the hip, not down low. And then I could also do this with a straight leg. So I had my leg bent before, now it's straight. It'll feel a little different. And I could also pause. If I find an area that's particularly tight, I may do some of this bending and straightening of the leg. That does a little bit of cross fiber kind of work on there. I could do some internal and external rotation too. And you might find something else that seems appropriate, like maybe you try to draw some circles. That works better with the ball if you put a ball under there, but it still works on the roller. And you might assist with this opposite hand. So just listen to your body and be intuitive with it. What matters most, again, is that you're feeling it, but not like a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. Maybe a 7 in terms of intensity. If it's, again, so intense that you're freaking out, you can't take a deep breath, just back it off. Move some weight off of there. Or maybe you need a softer roller. This is a pretty dense one. They do have softer ones out there. They're usually white or a different color. These black ones are pretty dense, and they may or may not be appropriate for you. So check it out. All right, so that was inner thigh. On the right side, I'm going to switch sides now. Remember, leg as high up there as you can so that it's at least in line with that hip. I might do some with a bent knee like this. And again, what I'm doing today is addressing all of the things that I see most common when I do my muscular imbalance assessments. So most common, I see a flattening out of the feet and then an external rotation of the feet and the knees falling in. And that's all compensation because the body is not in balance. So the body does what it needs to do to get through the movement, but it's not necessarily healthy for the body to do the squat with the feet out and the knees in. So we want to do the best we can to get in balance so that when we do not only our exercise in the gym, and again, straight leg if you'd like, but also anything you do throughout your day. So you might bend over and pick something up, just grocery bag, whatever it is. And if your glutes are not working for you, or you're squatting down in a way that the knees are doing something funky, you're going to probably end up hurting yourself. Your back, your knees, your hip, who knows? So we want the body to work in like symphony. It's like a symphony. It all works well together. So nobody does more work than anybody else. Now the glutes maybe should be doing a little bit more work. So, but every part of the body should be helping out so that there's a distribution of work happening. Remember, you could straighten and bend and straighten and bend. Internal, external rotation. Okay, great. So we're going to now move on to the lats. So that's these guys right here. This can be really, really tender. So if you have a roller and it's too much, you may lay a towel or something soft over it, or you might need to just get a roller that's not as dense. So I'm going to lay right on my armpit here. I'm going to clasp my hands behind my head. And then I just tuck my bottom right elbow in a bit as I start to roll forwards and backwards. Now notice my knees are bent up here again to about 90 degrees. And that's just to give my back more support as I'm doing this rotation. So I'm moving back and forth. And again, this can be pretty intense. So maybe you need to move a little up or a little down to make it tolerable for yourself. And keep breathing. I might do 10 or so of those, and then I'll start to roll up and down. So one of these times I might decide to put my hand on there and help myself roll, or maybe not. So see how it goes for you. So sometimes it's nice to actually use the opposite hand and roll it up and down a bit. Now I can lean back and get a little bit more of the back of the shoulder. And then a little forward. So I'm actually getting a little bit of the pectoral area. Now, when I have this test that I do on folks, I do see the arms rolling forward or falling forward with the squat. So if the test goes like this, I take arms overhead, they do the squat, and most often the arms fall forward. We've got a dowel in the arms, in the hands. The arms tend to fall forward, and that is tension in the lats and the pecs usually. So we want to address all of that. And I will be showing you some stretching that you can do for these as well. And let's go to the second side. So once again, lats. So I'm here and I am rolling. And usually one side is different than the other side. It's really common. They might both be tight, but usually one side is a little bit more than the other. For me, it's oftentimes my dominant arm. Not always. And after a few of those, 10 or so, I'm going to go ahead and start to roll up and down. And again, I might use this opposite arm, this opposite hand actually, to help me roll up and down here. And I could lean a little bit to the back, get a little bit of the back of the shoulder. And I could also, as I did on the other side, start to get a little bit more of the pectoral area. So that's the chest, upper chest. All right. And there's, of course, 1,000 more, well, maybe not 1,000, but a lot more that I could show you. But these are the ones that are super common areas that are muscular imbalanced when I do most of my testing on folks. So we're going to go ahead and now get the middle upper back area. So this area is really important for it to be strong for postural alignment. Same thing happens here. Oftentimes this area is locked long and shut down because of this hunched forward position we tend to get into when we sit. So when we do this releasing of the middle upper back, it will start waking up so that when we go to strengthen it, it's actually going to be active and work for you. If it's shut down, you try to strengthen it, those muscles aren't going to wake up very well. They're not going to work for you. All right, so first of all, we can just roll it out. This usually feels pretty good for people. Depending on how tight you are in your back, it will feel amazing or pretty good. For most folks, this is not as intense. All right, and then I'm going to keep my hands behind my head, or I can cross hands across shoulders. Either way, what we want to do is round out the upper back. So I'm actually squeezing my elbows in. Now my rear end is on the ground, and I'm going to lean over the roller and then come back up and lean and come back up. And I might do a few in one section of my middle upper back, and then I might move. So now I'm right at the bottom of my rib cage, like bra line-ish area. And I'm leaning back and I'm coming up. Notice my elbows are still squeezed in as I do this. I'm leaning back and then coming up. And I might come all the way to the top of my upper back and continue to do this kind of a movement. And then I'll come back to right about between my shoulder blades. I'll clasp my hands again if they weren't already clasped. And now I'll lean back, but this time I'll let my elbows come out to the side. So this is an intentional stretch across the chest and shoulders. And take a few deep breaths. And then I just like to do one last little roll it out, iron it all out. By no means have I touched on every muscular imbalance that I've seen, but I would say I have touched on with these releases the most common and mostly associated with sitting a lot. All right. And the final one that I'm going to do, this could be done with a Pilates ball, which is going to be a lot more forgiving than a foam roller. But if all you have is a foam roller, then you can use a foam roller. I'm going to lay over the roller here on my belly, okay? And again, that can be a lot. So if it is, you might choose to grab a pillow instead. That would be more forgiving. And again, a Pilates ball that has some give, that would also be a little bit more forgiving. But again, if all you have a foam roller around, all you have is that foam roller, you might decide to give this a try, okay? Maybe you don't put all of your weight on there. So what I'm doing here is, yes, of course, I'm pressing on my guts, but what's in there is also my psoas, hip flexors. So when we sit a lot, the psoas tightens up. It locks short. When it's locked short, guess what? It turns off. It doesn't work right for us. It also can pull your body into a position that's not very healthy posturally. So I'm going to take some deep breaths. My belly presses against there and then I exhale and release. I could also just do some gentle rolling up and down. And I will say again, the foam roller isn't for everybody. If you're really tender in your belly, if this area is really locked up on you, I really recommend something softer. I usually use a Pilates ball that's got some give, like it's only 3/4 full. And then you'd lay it just like I am, right underneath the belly, and then you breathe. All right, very good. So we're gonna move on to some activation now. And what you'll need again is a little mini band for the most part for this. All right, so